Imagine starting an ordinary day. You wake up in the morning and pick up your phone. However, you have no internet connection. You get into your car to go to work, but the maps and navigation apps aren't working. The sky is cloudy. You look at the weather app, but the forecasts have completely crashed. When you arrive at the office, the situation takes an even more terrifying turn. Global financial systems have stopped, transactions on stock exchanges are frozen, and ATMs are not giving out money. All flights around the world have been suddenly cancelled. All the modern infrastructure built by humanity is plunged into darkness within seconds. In such a scenario, the first thing that comes to mind would be a massive global cyber attack or a nuclear war, wouldn't it? However, the truth could be much different and much more ironic. The cause of this massive collapse might not be hackers, but the invisible trash orbiting the Earth right now, 400 kilometers above our heads. We are taking a closer look at that great danger humanity has left in space, which is about to imprison us on our own planet. Welcome to the space junkyard. When we look at the sky, we think of space as an infinite, dark, and empty ocean. However, the surroundings of our planet, that is, our orbit, is not empty at all. Everything we have sent up since the space age began and that is no longer useful is called space debris. These are dead satellites that have run out of fuel and have been wandering aimlessly for years. They are massive rocket parts left in space after completing their missions. They are even remnants resulting from collisions or explosions in space. Perhaps when you think of space debris, only massive piles of iron come to mind. But the real danger is not just the large pieces. Even millimeter-sized paint particles falling off rockets or a single nut is space debris. And just because something is small in space, it definitely does not mean it is harmless. Because the speeds in orbit are incredibly high. That tiny paint particle moves at a speed of 8 kilometers per second. This is approximately 10 times faster than a bullet. A piece of paint at that speed can pierce through even the sturdiest space shuttle window in seconds. Humanity has been sending things into space for years, so why has this issue suddenly turned into such a huge crisis today? Because the rules have changed. In the past, space was a prestigious area where only massive states, America or the Soviets, launched rockets very rarely. However, in the last decade, private companies have entered the fray, and the doors of space have opened completely. Companies like SpaceX are launching thousands of satellites at once to provide global internet. Competitors like OneWeb and Amazon are joining them. That valuable area we call low Earth orbit has suddenly turned into the world's busiest highway. Today, alongside thousands of satellites actively working in orbit, there are tens of thousands of dead pieces constantly maneuvering to avoid colliding with them. Space is no longer a silent void, it is an incredibly crowded and dangerous traffic zone. Imagine that the speed limit on this crowded highway is 8 kilometers per second and there are no traffic lights. The collision of two large pieces in space is not like an ordinary traffic accident. When two satellites collide, they do not disappear. They shatter with unimaginable energy and turn into thousands of new, small, and uncontrollable metal shrapnel. These thousands of new shrapnel pieces become new bullets to hit other satellites. In the scientific world, this terrifying chain reaction is called the Kessler Syndrome. The Kessler Syndrome is an unstoppable domino effect where one collision triggers thousands of new collisions. Just like a nuclear reaction, once it starts, it doesn't stop until it shatters everything in orbit. This is exactly the most frightening scientific fact at the heart of this video. So, is this chain reaction just a theoretical fear, or has it ever happened? Let's look at a concrete example. When the date showed 2009, an unimaginable accident occurred in space. The operational American communication satellite Iridium-33 and the massive Russian military satellite Cosmos 2251, which had been wandering aimlessly as a dead object for years, collided head-on 800 kilometers above Siberia. As a result of this massive collision, which occurred 10 times faster than a bullet, thousands of new deadly pieces were formed in the sky that needed to be tracked. The issue is not limited to accidents either. Some countries have intentionally shot down their own dead satellites in space to test their own missiles. Because of these anti-satellite tests, millions of more pieces of trash were added to the orbit. So yes, the theory is slowly turning into reality. Let's go back to that dark scenario at the beginning of the video. Why would the collision of two metal pieces in the sky affect your daily life so severely? Because our modern civilization is connected to those satellites in the sky with invisible digital strings. The first things to be affected would be navigation systems. The map in your car, the route of merchant ships in the seas, and the wayfinding systems of tens of thousands of planes in the air are directly connected to GPS satellites. Second is the communication network. Not only satellite internet, but also intercontinental phone calls and television broadcasts would immediately collapse. Third is weather forecasting. When meteorological satellites go blind, we cannot see an approaching massive hurricane or storm in advance, and millions of people are caught unprepared. Fourth and most deadly is time synchronization. Modern banking and stock market systems use perfect time signals from satellites to confirm transactions within milliseconds. If this signal is cut, global banking infrastructure literally locks up. This event, which seems like a trash problem in space, is felt directly on the ground, in your pocket. Let's think about the magnitude of this effect from a wider window. Imagine that satellites go blind for a week. The global supply chains that keep grocery shelves full would stop. Logistics companies would not be able to direct their trucks and cargo ships. Stock markets could not trade. The world economy would start to lose billions of dollars in seconds. Emergency systems, ambulances, and fire trucks would not be able to find the shortest route. The distribution systems of electricity grids would be disrupted. This is no longer just the slowing down of the internet, it is the fastest economic and systemic collapse human history has ever seen. The modern economy can only last a few days without the satellites in the sky. Of course, there are also people at the forefront of the danger. Astronauts serving in space. The International Space Station is in an orbit where these massive bullets are constantly flying. Most people don't know, but the space station occasionally has to perform orbital maneuvers by firing its engines to escape from this deadly trash. The collision of just a 1 centimeter piece of trash with the station can instantly turn into a life or death struggle for the astronauts. Not just existing stations. Planned future manned lunar missions, Mars journeys, and next-generation space hotels must also pass through this junkyard. While the orbit is this dangerous, humanity's space dreams remain in the middle of a giant minefield. Since the situation is this serious, why doesn't someone step up and clean up this trash? The engineering part of it is truly fascinating but equally difficult. The European Space Agency and some private companies are trying crazy ideas in this regard. There are projects that plan to catch dead satellites just like a fish by launching massive nets into space. There are those who plan to shoot space harpoons to pierce the metals and drag them towards the atmosphere. Catching trash with robotic arms and bringing them into the atmosphere to burn, or changing the direction of trash pieces with massive lasers are also among the ideas on the table. However, against all these futuristic ideas stands a very ruthless reality. This trash is rotating at a speed of 8 kilometers per second. Catching an incredibly fast washing machine spinning like a top in space is literally a nightmare in terms of engineering. Suppose we invented the perfect trash-collecting spaceship. That's when the real dark problem, politics, comes into play. To whom does a piece of trash in space belong? Who has the right to clean a Russian military satellite that was launched years ago but is now dead? When cleaning robots belonging to America or China approach another country's satellite, wouldn't this be perceived as a space attack or espionage activity in the international arena? A state could say, they are trying to steal my secrets under the pretext of cleaning my satellite. So the issue is no longer just an engineering problem of launching harpoons and lasers. It is international law and an extremely dangerous geopolitical crisis. Let's come to that eerie question at the beginning of the video. What will happen if collisions cannot be controlled and the Kessler Syndrome begins? Humanity could make its own orbit completely unusable. When the low Earth orbit is covered with a massive cloud of trash, some orbits will become so risky that launching a new satellite there will be equivalent to suicide. This situation will increase the costs of accessing space to astronomical levels. Perhaps years later, our children will look at the stars and think that going there is just an old legend. Humanity will have locked the door opening to the infinite universe from the inside with its own trash. Scientists are currently doing their best to prevent this doomsday scenario from happening. With advanced radar systems, tens of thousands of pieces in orbit are tracked 24 hours a day, and collision predictions are made. Strict rules are being brought to next-generation satellite designs. Now, a satellite launched into space is required to have a system that will safely enter the atmosphere and burn itself when its mission is over. There is an unprecedented international coordination effort among space agencies. However, to be honest, the clear message is this: this massive problem has not been solved yet. It is only being tried to be managed and postponed momentarily so that it does not get much worse. For thousands of years, humans used the oceans and the sky like a trash can. We acted as if we had no limits. And now we are carrying the same habit to the stars. However, there is a difference. For the first time, humanity is polluting not only the planet it lives on but also the area around its planet and closing its own exit door. Perhaps the most devastating environmental crisis humanity will face will be experienced not in the depths of the oceans or among the clouds, but right above our heads, in that invisible orbit. So, what do you think about this? Will humanity succeed in cleaning its own space junkyard, or will our space age end among the trash? Share your thoughts and theories with us in the comments. To continue discovering the secrets of the future, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.